Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today we explain Prophets Kings 1 chapter 7 in a clear and simple way, step by step. All right, to set the stage for our walkthrough today, let's just quickly remember where we left off. In the previous chapter, King Solomon pulled off this monumental achievement. He successfully completed the construction of the magnificent temple of the Lord. But as we're going to see, Solomon's building ambitions definitely didn't stop there. In Chapter 7, the focus shifts a bit. We're going to take a really close look at the massive royal complexes Solomon builds for himself, and then we'll head right back to the temple courtyard to witness the creation of its absolutely awe-inspiring bronze and gold furnishings. So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start by checking out Solomon's grand palace complex. Then we'll meet Hiram the bronze craftsman. After that, we'll examine the famous Jachin and Boaz pillars, explore the massive bronze sea, detail the bronze stands and gold furnishings, and finally, wrap up with some key ideas and life lessons. All right, Section 1, Solomon's Grand Palace Complex. The chapter opens with a really fascinating number, 13. Verse 1 tells us that while Solomon took 7 years to build the temple of the Lord, it actually took him 13 years to finish his own palace complex. It's a pretty striking contrast, right? Now, this doesn't necessarily mean his house was somehow more important than the temple, but it was for sure much larger. We're talking about several sprawling structures meant to house his entire royal administration, his family, and all his governmental duties. Now, as we go through the text today, we're going to run into a lot of measurements. To help us truly picture the staggering size of these structures, let's quickly define our main unit of measurement, the cubit. Basically, a cubit is an ancient measurement based on the length of a human forearm, from the elbow right to the tip of the middle finger. So generally, that equals about 1.5 feet or 18 inches. Keep that in the back of your mind because the numbers we're about to look at are absolutely massive. Okay, verses 2 through 8 detail the specific buildings within this royal complex. First up, there's the Palace of the Forest of Lebanon. This building was 100 cubits long, 50 wide, and 30 high. That is about 150 feet long and 75 feet wide. And it was called the Forest of Lebanon because it featured 4 massive rows of cedar columns supporting a cedar roof, so walking into it, it literally looked like a dense forest of giant trees. Next, he built a colonnade, basically a huge porch of pillars, which was 50 cubits by 30 cubits. Then, crucially, we have the throne hall, also known as the Hall of Justice. This is where King Solomon would actually sit to judge the people, and get this, it was paneled entirely in cedar from floor to ceiling. Finally, set further back in another courtyard, he built his own personal living quarters, as well as an identical lavish house for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had married. All of this just brilliantly illustrates the level of wealth and craftsmanship during Solomon's era, which is described in verses 9 through 12. These structures weren't just big, they were built with premium, incredibly costly stones. The text actually notes that the foundations were laid with huge stones measuring 8 and 10 cubits. To put that in perspective, that means foundation blocks 12 to 15 feet long. And they were meticulously sawed and trimmed on all sides. The great surrounding courtyard was built with 3 layers of dressed stone, topped with a layer of cedar beams, which directly mirrored the exact design of the inner courtyard of the Temple of the Lord. The dedication to quality here was just absolute. Moving right along, Section 2, Hiram the bronze craftsman. So King Solomon sends to Tyre and brings back a man named Hiram, who is also called Hiram in some texts, and Hiram has a really interesting background. His mother was an Israelite widow from the northern tribe of Naphtali, but his late father was a man of Tyre and a bronze worker by trade. Hiram is described as being completely filled with wisdom, understanding, and the skill to do absolutely any work in bronze. He really acts as the perfect bridge, bringing the world-renowned metalworking techniques of Tyre to serve the God of Israel. Solomon brings him in and assigns him all the monumental bronze work for the exterior of the temple. Next up, Section 3, the Jachin and Boaz pillars. Let's take a look at the incredible dimensions of Hiram's first great project. Each pillar was cast from solid bronze and stood 18 cubits high. That is about 27 feet tall. They were 12 cubits, or 18 feet, in circumference. But it wasn't just about the sheer size, it was about the beauty. On top of these pillars sat massive capitals, 5 cubits high, shaped like opening lily blossoms. And Hiram didn't stop there. He decorated these capitals with intricate networks of interwoven bronze chains and hung 200 bronze pomegranates in rows around them. Just imagine the sunlight catching these towering, ornate pillars as you approach the temple. And these pillars weren't just decorative, they carried profound meaning. Verse 21 tells us Solomon actually gave them names. He named the south pillar Jachin, which translates to he establishes, and he named the north pillar Boaz, which means in him is strength. Standing together right at the entrance, these served as this permanent, towering testament to the people that it's the Lord who establishes the nation, and it's in the Lord that they find their strength. All right, section 4, the massive bronze sea. Now, before we describe what this massive basin actually looked like, let's talk about its capacity. The text says it held 2,000 baths. A bath is an ancient liquid measure, and 2,000 baths is equivalent to roughly 9,700 gallons of water. That is an absolute game changer. This was a colossal reservoir designed specifically for the priests to wash in before they performed their sacred duties. So try to picture the visual anatomy of this bronze sea. It was perfectly circular, measuring 10 cubits, about 15 feet, across from rim to rim, and it stood 5 cubits high. The bronze itself was a handbreadth thick, which is roughly 3 inches of solid metal. Its rim was beautifully flared out, kind of like the rim of a cup or a lily blossom, and right below the rim it was decorated with 2 rows of cast gourds. But perhaps the most striking feature was its base. This massive sea of water rested entirely on the backs of 12 life-sized cast bronze bowls. 3 faced north, 3 faced west, 3 south, and 3 east, with their hindquarters pointing inward to support the immense weight of the basin. It's just a stunning combination of artistry and ancient structural engineering. Moving into section 5, bronze stands and gold furnishings. Verses 27 through 39 describe 10 movable bronze stands, which essentially functioned as mobile water stations for the sacrifices. Let's break down their rather complex design. Each stand had a square base, 4 cubits long and wide and 3 cubits high. They were made with frames and panels, and Hiram engraved these panels with lions, bulls, and cherubim, all surrounded by wreaths. To make them movable, each stand was attached to 4 bronze wheels with bronze axles, designed exactly like chariot wheels, a cubit and a half in diameter. And on top of each of these 10 wheeled stands sat a bronze basin holding 40 baths of water. Hiram placed 5 of these stands on the south side of the temple and 5 on the north. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth did Hiram make all of this? I mean, along with the pillars, the sea, and the stands, he also made all the ash pots, the shovels, and the sprinkling bowls. Well, the text tells us King Solomon had them cast in clay molds in the plain of the Jordan River, right between Sukkoth and Zerathon. The earth there was perfectly suited for this kind of massive industrial casting. In fact, verse 47 notes that Solomon didn't even bother weighing the bronze because there was simply too much of it. The sheer volume was literally beyond calculation. Now, starting in verse 48, we move from the outside of the temple to the inside. Hiram worked exclusively with bronze for the courtyard items, but for the holy interior of the temple, Solomon himself commissioned furnishings of pure gold. Inside, he placed the golden altar for incense and the golden table for the bread of the presence. He also made 10 pure gold lampstands, 5 for the right side, 5 for the left, placed right in front of the inner sanctuary. Even the smallest details were magnificent. The floral work, the lamps, the tongs, the dishes, the wick trimmers, the censers, and even the sockets for the massive doors of the most holy place. Absolutely everything inside was crafted from unalloyed, pure gold. This brings us to verse 51, which is a really beautiful conclusion to all this labor. When all the work King Solomon had done for the temple of the Lord was finally finished, he didn't forget how it all started. He brought in the silver, the gold, and the vessels that had been collected and dedicated by his father, King David. Solomon placed them securely in the treasuries of the Lord's temple. It's such a powerful moment, honoring his father's dream and officially completing this grand generational mission. And finally, section 6, key ideas and life lessons. So, what can we take away from all these architectural details? First, we see the immense value of skilled labor. Solomon was the wisest king on earth, but he knew he wasn't a bronze worker. He sought out Hiram's unique expertise. It reminds us to really value the craftsmen and specialists in our own communities. Second, we see what it means to honor your beliefs. The sheer scale, the intricate detail of the pomegranates, the massive volume of bronze and gold, it shows that physical craftsmanship can be a profound, tangible expression of inner devotion. Third, the text specifically goes out of its way to mention the massive 10 and 8 cubit foundation stones. Whether you're building a palace, a career, or a family, a structure is only as strong as the unseen foundation it rests upon. And finally, great tasks take time. It took 7 years for the temple and 13 years for the palace. Patience and persistent daily effort are required to build anything meant to last. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. We likely aren't casting 27-foot bronze pillars or building palaces with massive cedar beams, but we are all building something. Whether it's your family, your career, your personal character, or your community, how can you apply this standard of excellence? How can we bring the patience of a 13-year build and the meticulous, beautiful detail of Hiram's craftsmanship to our own daily efforts and our legacy? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.